Mayor Eric Adams wears the stench of corruption quite well, like the cheap cologne he's known for.
These charges will be entirely false, based on lies. I always knew that if I stood my ground for all of you, that I would be a target. And a target I became.
Let's get one thing straight. I'm not surprised by Mayor Eric Adams' federal indictment. And I have to admit, I saw this coming. As a born and raised, homegrown New Yorker who grew up watching politicians rise to power only to fall from grace in a spectacular fashion, there's a part of me that can't help but say, I knew it. Eric Adams always struck me as a type who had more skeletons in his closet than a haunted house. Now, as the mainstream media and social platforms are gridlocked with this breaking news, I can't help but chuckle at the irony. Isn't it funny how power, money, and fame have a nasty habit of exposing the shady underbelly of those who indulge in them? Now, I'm not saying Adams is guilty. I'll leave that to the courts, but I've got to be honest. The associations he's kept over the years were enough to raise my eyebrows. You know that saying, birds of a feather flock together? Maybe, just maybe, Mayor Adams seems to be soaring with some rather questionable company. The latest news is that Mayor Eric Adams has been indicted on at least one federal criminal charge following a months-long investigation. The U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan was digging into his connections with Turkish officials and businessmen, as well as campaign donations he received. It's still unclear what specific charges he's facing, but let's be real here. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Adams himself responded to the news by saying, "If I am charged, I am innocent, and I will fight this with every ounce of my strength and spirit." He sounded quite heroic, but even Superman had his kryptonite, right? Adams is expected to have several days to turn himself in, and from what sources are saying, he's not expected to show up in court on Thursday. His lawyers even tried to meet with senior officials from the Justice Department to stave off these charges. But as expected, that appeal fell on deaf ears. Now here's where it gets juicy. Adams' campaign fundraiser, Brianna Suggs, was the first person to get the heat when federal investigators executed a search warrant at her home nearly a year ago. Phones, computers, tablets, you name it, were seized. It's clear the feds were sniffing around. And it wasn't long before they started looking into Adams' phone too. When FBI agents showed up, they didn't waste any time. They walked right up to Adams, asked his NYPD security detail to step aside, and seized his electronic devices like they were grabbing snacks at a corner store. Now folks, if that isn't a dramatic moment, I don't know what is. But hey, this is New York, and drama is always on the menu. Let's talk about Mayor Adams' associations for a minute. Remember when he gave P. Diddy the key to the city? And look at P. Diddy now, also facing his own federal indictments. Coincidence? Maybe. But in my experience, these so-called coincidences usually turn out to be red flags waving frantically in the wind. And don't forget about Adams mentoring the infamous Brooklyn pastor Lamar Whitehead, who's as corrupt as they come. If this is the kind of company he keeps, it makes you wonder what's really lurking below that slick public persona. And speaking of slick, Adams has always shown favor to certain communities, most notably the Turkish and Jewish communities. Reports suggest he received donations from the Turkish government. The question is, will they come to his rescue now that he's in hot water? Something tells me they'll be watching from the sidelines. Mr. Adams will especially be greeted with silence if he decides to take a friendly stroll through Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and Spring Valley, New York for sure if he's found to be dirty. Let's not forget how social media has lit up like a Christmas tree with everyone sharing their thoughts on Mayor Adams' indictment. People are suspicious, and rightfully so. When you got multiple federal probes circling your inner circle, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that something isn't quite right. But hey, maybe Adams just has the worst luck in history. Or maybe, just maybe, he's been playing the game a little too close to the edge. At the end of the day, the lesson here is that power, money, and fame are intoxicating. They can elevate you to great heights, but they can also turn you into a walking time bomb if you're not careful. They'll corrupt you faster than you can say indictment. And while Mayor Eric Adams fights to clear his name, one thing is certain: the truth always finds a way to the surface. So Mayor Adams, enjoy that key to the city while you still have it. You might need it to unlock your cell at Rikers Island. And as for P. Diddy, maybe you too can reminisce about the good old days when you thought you had it all figured out and have a private freak-off party while in protective custody. I'm quite sure the mainstream media will have the Hazen Street Bridge that one must cross to get to the jail in a state of gridlock as they seek out to document the fall from grace that has come to pass after comedian Cat Williams prophesied that this is the year of exposed truth. LanceScurv out. Subscribe to LanceScurv.com.
LanceScurv.com. Bold, raw, and uncut.